Welcome back, and now to the rest of our stories. People of Tombia community in Ekpetiama Kingdom in Yenagua local government area of Bayelsa State have been directed to uphold the provisions of their constitution in the forthcoming election of a substantive paramount ruler. The state deputy governor, Senator Lawrence Ekru Jakbo, who gave the directive during an enlarged stakeholders meeting held in Government House, Yenagua, urged the feuding parties in the community to sink their differences in the interest of peace and development of the community. A statement by his senior special assistant on media, Mr. Dobara Atasi, stressed on the need for the people of Tombia to obey the zoning or rotational principle of electing their Aman and Norway between the two major community quarters of the community, as clearly spelled out in their subsisting constitution, adding that the community's constitution cannot be amended to expunge the rotational clause when an electoral process for the enthronement of a new Aman and Norway was already underway. The Deputy Governor also said the community could make all necessary amendments to the extant constitution, including the rotational clause if they so wish, only after the election and inauguration of a substantive paramount ruler who alone has the legitimate authority to sign the amended constitution into force. Operatives of the Delta State Police Command attached to Agbo Division have arrested the key suspect involved in the abduction and murder of a commercial motorcyclist in Agbo, Ika South local government area. A statement issued by the Police Public Relations Officer for Delta State Command, SP Bright Edafe, in Warri on Thursday said a report of a missing person was received at the Agbo Division, indicating that a man identified as Friday Orungbe of Idumu Oza Agbo Ika South local government area, who left home on 6th October 2025 with his life-and motorcycle failed to return. The statement, upon interrogation, the suspect confessed they boarded the victim's motorcycle under the pretense of being passengers but lured him into a bush along power line near Oki Agbo, where they attacked him with a hoe, rendering him unconscious before stealing his motorcycle and phone. The DP of Agbo Division led operatives and the suspect to the crime scene, where the decomposed corpse of the victim was recovered and the remains were identified by family members and deposited at the Central Hospital Mortuary Agbo for autopsy. And the suspect is in custody and the investigation is ongoing. Meanwhile, the Commissioner of Police Delta State Command, CP Olufemi Abaniwanda, has commended the officers for their professionalism and swift response in apprehending the suspect, and also reiterated the command's unwavering commitment to the fight against crime and criminality in all forms, stressing that the command will continue to intensify intelligence-led operations and community-based policing to ensure the safety of lives and property across the state. Edo State Governor Senator Mondo Kwebelo has described the refusal of his predecessor, Godwin Obaseki, to swear in 3 judges last year as a slap on the judiciary. The governor stated this on Thursday when he received the leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association, Benin branch, and the members of the local organizing committee for the upcoming NBA National Executive Committee at the Government House in Benin. This is coming after Obaseki had sworn in 5 of the 8 judges in May 2024, despite the National Judicial Council recommending all of them for appointment as judges in June 2023. And after assuming office in November 2024, Okwebelo presided over the swearing-in ceremony of the 3 judges, Ojo Osa, Okundamiya Jeff, and Edo Gogo Egboigbe, into the Edo State High Court on December 2, 2024, fulfilling the pledge he made during his inaugural speech. Speaking further during the NBA's visit, the governor said the sidelining of the 3 judges by Obaseki was a grave injustice to the state's justice system and vowed that his administration would not repeat the errors of the previous administration. The governor reaffirmed his administration's commitment to strengthening the rule of law, deepening judicial independence, and building a robust partnership with the bar for effective justice delivery, adding that he investigated the matter before assuming office and found no justification for the delay or denial of the judges swearing in, and the decision to finally swear them in was taken to rewrite the wrongs of the past and restore confidence in the judiciary. Okwebelo commended the NBA for its role in advancing justice and governance, while assuring the association of his administration's continued support to provide operational vehicles for the association to aid its statewide engagement. Chairman of the NBA Benin branch, Barrister Idemudia Osifo, commended the governor for his bold reforms, especially his swift action in swearing in the previously sidelined judges and restoring the customary court of appeal, which was unjustifiably scrapped by the last administration. Ekiti State High Court sitting in Ado-Ekiti has sentenced a 27-year-old man, Alex Peter, to life imprisonment for armed robbery and additional 9 years for conspiracy. Peter was first arraigned on December 29, 2022 on a two-count charge of conspiracy and armed robbery, and according to the charge sheet, the convicts and others still at large at Ado Ekiti conspired to rob one Augustine Stephen, carting away his red Bajaj motorcycle while armed with dangerous weapons, including a cutlass and an axe, offences contrary to sections 314 and 312 of the Ekiti State Criminal Law 2021. He said they spotted the defendant at a restaurant and apprehended him with the help of bystanders before alerting the police. While prosecution counsel O.S. Akinwumi called for witnesses and tendered several exhibits, including the defendant's confessional statement and the recovered motorcycle's particulars. The defendant, who was represented by counsel Stanley Okonkwo, denied the allegations but called no witnesses in his defense. Delivering Justice Adekunle Adeleye held that the prosecution had proved its case beyond reasonable doubt, noting that the defendant's own confession corroborated with the victim's testimony, and consequently, the court sentenced Alex Peter to 9 years imprisonment for conspiracy and life imprisonment for armed robbery. Kwara State government has cleared 3.3 billion naira outstanding pension debts inherited from the previous administration for local government workers as part of efforts to gradually offset accumulated gratuity arrears in the state. The Commissioner for Finance, Dr. Hawa Nuhu, who disclosed this on Tuesday during the 2025 third quarter interministerial press briefing held in Ilorin, the state capital, adding that the government met a backlog of local government gratuities amounting to over 19 billion naira as of 2009, out of which 12 billion naira had been paid so far. The commissioner also said gratuity payments for state civil servants had been cleared up to 2016, though about 22 billion naira was still being owed, while the administration has earmarked 5.6 billion naira from the state's internally generated revenue for the third quarter of 2025 to settle part of the outstanding gratuities. New attributed the rising gratuity liabilities to the implementation of two separate minimum wage increases since the beginning of the Abdurrahman Abdurazak administration, but assured that the government was working hard to clear the arrears. Commissioner of Police, Federal Capital Territory, Mina Dantawaye, has ordered the immediate redeployment of the divisional police officer in charge of Ushafa Division following a viral video showing him slapping a young man during an arrest. The incident, which sparked outrage after footage of the officer assaulting citizens surfaced on X, formerly Twitter, on Tuesday, drew widespread criticism from Nigerians who condemned the act as unprofessionalism and abusive. A statement by the Police Public Relations Officer for the FCT Command, SP Josephine Ade, said the commissioner described the officer's action as unacceptable and contrary to the ethics of the Nigeria Police Force, and strongly condemns the officer's actions which fall short of the high standards of discipline, civility and professionalism expected of police officers. Ade said the officer had been redeployed to the headquarters pending the outcome of an ongoing investigation into the incident, and also warned all divisional police officers and their subordinates to remain professional and cautious while performing their duties, stressing that any act of misconduct or abuse of power would attract strict disciplinary action. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Nyesom Wike, has declared plans to spend 20 days showcasing the achievements of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration in the education sector within the territory. Wike made this known on Thursday during the commissioning of the newly provided engineering infrastructure in Wuye District, Abuja, adding that the initiative is aimed at showing Nigerians, especially critics on social media, the level of development achieved under President Tinubu's leadership. Wike said the Tinubu administration is not only focused on road and infrastructure development in the FCT, but also making significant progress in improving education, adding that after the 20 days of flagging off and commissioning the project, there would be a short break before the focus shifts fully to education. National Emergency Management Agency says the death toll in the petrol tanker explosion that occurred at Eson community in Kacha local government area of Niger State has risen to 39, while 60 people were hospitalized after sustaining varying degrees of burns in the incident. A statement shared on X, the Niger State Police Command confirmed that 31 people were killed in the incident, adding that the tanker, which was conveying petrol, was involved in a lone accident before spilling its content. Meanwhile, The governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has expressed sympathy to his Niger State counterpart, Governor Mohammed Bago, over the tanker explosion. Sanwo-Olu, who is the chairman of the Southwest Governors Forum, also condoled with the families of the victims of the lone tanker accident along the Bida-Agaye Highway. A statement issued by his special advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Gboyega Akosile, said the governor is worrisome and pathetic. Department of State Services (DSS) has arrested at least 3 suspected gun runners for allegedly supplying arms and ammunition to bandits in Kaduna State. The DSS said the arrests were made during coordinated sting operations in Igabi and Kachia local government areas of the state, while one of the suspects, a 30-year-old man, was intercepted along the Nnamdi Azikiwe bypass in Igabi while transporting 2 AK-47 rifles, 1 PKT machine gun, over 200 rounds of live ammunition, and 4 empty magazines concealed in sacks of maize. 2 others were apprehended at Doka village in Kachia along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway while trafficking 3 AK-47 rifles to bandits in a Volkswagen Golf car. And reacting to the development, Governor Obasani commended the DSS for the successful operation, adding that there would be no hiding place for bandits and other criminal elements under his administration's peace model. The governor, through his Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Shule Shaibu, also expressed appreciation to President Bola Tinubu and the Director General of the DSS for their continued support of Kaduna security framework, adding that the non-kinetic peace model introduced by his administration has significantly reduced crime rates across the state and warned criminal elements to desist from acts capable of undermining the state's stability. Kano State Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf has dismissed speculations of a rift with his political mentor, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, saying no individual or group can create division between them. Speaking during a gathering attended by top members of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, and the Kwakwansiya movement, Yusuf said his relationship with Kwankwaso remains strong and guided by shared values of service and integrity, and described Senator Kwankwaso as a visionary and selfless leader committed to the progress of the people. Yusuf restated his dedication to developing the state based on the Kwankwasiya principles of service, accountability, and empowerment. In his remarks, Kwankwaso thanked the NNPP National Chairman, Dr. Ajuji Ahmed, party leaders from over 30 states, and loyal supporters for their continued dedication, and urged members of the NNPP and the Kwankwasiya movement across the country to remain united and committed to the growth and success of the party. President Bola Tinubu has urged the newly appointed chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Joash Amopitan, to defend the integrity of Nigeria's elections, describing credible polls as the bedrock of any democracy. Speaking at the State House in Abuja shortly after administering the oath of office to the new INEC boss, Tinubu said Amopitan's appointment, confirmed by the Senate a week ago, was a mark of confidence in his competence and character by both the executive and legislative arms of government. The president said Nigeria's democracy, which has lasted since 1999, had evolved through reforms, innovation, and lessons learned from past challenges, adding that while no electoral system is flawless, credibility and transparency at every stage, be it registration, campaigning, voting, and results collation, remain critical to sustaining public trust. Tinubu urged Amopitan to prioritize transparency, inclusivity, and non-violence in future polls. Meanwhile, the newly sworn-in chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Joash Amopitan's son, has vowed to restore credibility and public confidence in the country's electoral system, declaring his appointment as a divine call to serve the nation. Speaking shortly after his inauguration by the president at the State House on Thursday, Amopitan declared that his mission was clear: to deliver free, fair, and credible elections while deepening democratic values across the nation, adding that achieving INEC's mandate would hinge on teamwork, discipline, and integrity within the institution. Senators called for the transfer of the burden of proof in elections petitions from aggrieved candidates to the Independent National Electoral Commission, the body that conducts and supervises elections. The proposal formed a key part of deliberations as lawmakers debated the general principles of a bill seeking to repeal the 2022 Electoral Act and enact a new Electoral Act 2025, and the move would make the electoral process more credible, transparent, and accountable. But the Senate's fresh proposal sharply divided opposition parties, with the People's Democratic Party warning that the move could undermine democracy. Lawmakers backing the proposal, including Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Senator Sirake Dixon, argued that INEC should bear the burden of proving that elections were free, fair, and credible, describing it as a long overdue reform to strengthen democracy ahead of the 2027 polls. The lawmakers also believed if signed to law, it will mark a turning point in the bid to reform Nigeria's electoral framework ahead of the 2027 general elections. Leading the debate, Senator Siriake Dixon Bayelsa West argued that the reform was long overdue if Nigeria must strengthen its democracy. Senators commended the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for its performance in the fight against economic and financial crimes, particularly the significant progress recorded in 2024. This followed the adoption of a motion sponsored by Senator Emmanuel Udende during plenary. Udende said EFCC received 15,724 petitions in 2024, opened 12,928 case files, filed 5,008 cases in court, and secured and recorded 4,111 convictions, the highest in any single year since the Commission's establishment in 2003, while Senator Onyekachi Mwebonyi, who seconded the motion, also commended the Commission's transformation under the current administration. In his remarks, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio also thanked the anti-graft for the success record made so far.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, is also on record that the EFCC within the period under review have recovered over 500 billion naira in the course of fighting corruption. It's also on record, Mr. President, that the EFCC within the period under review have secured 4,000 convictions and in all 7,000 convictions since its creation. Mr. President,
when I see the statistics on television, I marvel. I think we should start by commending the current president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for finding square pegs in square holes. It is through appointing the right set of people that you get the right set of results. So what has happened to us is like a revolution in the EFCC. And they have done very well. They should also try to make sure that they also produce reports on various petitions that are frivolous or unpolitically motivated, so that the world will also know that in addition to finding these ones guilty, that these ones were not found guilty. Because Nigerians tend to believe that petition automatically means conviction, particularly public officers. So I'm very impressed with even what is happening in the cyber crime aspect of things in the country, where a lot of foreigners come here and make away with a lot of monies under all guises of money transfers and all that. I think that's an area we have to look into. So the Office of the National Security Advisor is also doing well in that respect.
Senators renewed calls for greater transparency and strict compliance with laid-down procedures in Nigeria's public procurement system, insisting that every naira spent by government must translate into tangible, provable projects. Speaking at a two-day retreat for members of the Senate Committee on Public Procurement in Abuja, the committee chairman, Senator Olajide Ipinsagba Ondo North, stressed the need to make procurement processes more transparent, efficient, and accountable in line with international best practices. He said the enactment of the Public Procurement Act 2007 and the establishment of the Bureau of Public Procurement were major steps forward. Nigerians still needed deeper reforms to strengthen compliance and integrity across the system, and also all stakeholders to align Nigeria's procurement practices with global standards and the reform agenda of President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope administration. Senate is set to amend the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency Act to secure better funding and improve road maintenance across the country. The Senate Committee on FEMA highlighted this during the screening of President Bola Tinubu's nominee for chairman of the FEMA Board of Trustees, and the committee, led by Senator Shahabi Alhaji Yao of Zamfara North, expressed concern over the continued poor state of federal roads, attributing the challenge to inadequate funding of FEMA. Senator Yao lamented that despite FEMA's critical role in maintaining the nation's road infrastructure, lack of sufficient funds has hampered effective operations.
So therefore, I think all of us over here agree that FEMA should be an agency that should be well funded, and we are looking forward at a situation whereby we'll make some amendments into the law that created FEMA for us to be able to make it work well and properly. So, distinguished colleagues, with this short notice and the business going to be a very sharp and well-coordinated one, I want us to go into the real business of the day.
Senate Committee on FEMA, responding to lawmakers' questions, Musa Babayo, nominee of a FEMA board chairman, vowed to use his extensive public service experience to reform and strengthen the agency's capacity.
Trust fund management and policy coordination. These are the levers which the Federal Road Maintenance Agency needs to propel to the next level. At the level of policy coordination, my experiences in different sectors of our national life has enabled me to work with critical stakeholders across the length and breadth of this country. For FEMA to succeed, we need that collaboration, especially at the National Assembly level. The Committee on PAMA at both chambers of the National Assembly will continue to engage with other critical stakeholders and other institutions of state, the Ministry of Finance, the ICRC, and other development partners in order to unlock some hidden opportunities that will help in creating a sustainability in funding. Funding is critical because it's one of the major constraints hampering the growth and effective and efficient use of our roads. And part of the vision I have for FEMA, and I believe with other members of the team that I will work with, is to unlock those hidden opportunities in order to make our roads safe and reliable.
Babayo's confirmation could mark a turning point as the Senate works toward amending the FEMA Act to enhance funding mechanisms, aiming to deliver safer, more reliable roads for Nigerians. The amendment, once passed, is expected to boost the agency's budget and operational efficiency toward tackling Nigeria's road infrastructure challenges decisively. House of Representatives begins investigations into alleged non-repatriation of Nigeria's crude oil export proceeds, estimated at over $850 billion between 1996 and 2014. A development lawmakers have described the non-repatriation as a massive revenue leakage undermining the nation's economic stability. Chairman of the House ad hoc Committee on Pre-Shipment Inspection of Exports and Non-Repatriation of Crude Oil Proceeds, Honorable Shayi Showumi, disclosed this during the inauguration of ad hoc committee in Abuja. He said recent allegations suggest a significant breakdown in compliance with the Pre-Shipment Inspection of Exports Act, with operators in the oil and gas sector reportedly failing to repatriate between 40 and 45% of Nigeria's crude oil export proceeds, contrary to the law which mandates full repatriation of export earnings within 90 days for oil exports and 180 days for non-oil exports, and also expressed concern over the disparity in export earnings data reported by government agencies such as the Central Bank of Nigeria, Department of Petroleum Resources, now NUPRC, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, and the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, as well as inconsistencies between Nigerian data and that of international bodies like OPEC. He also said non-oil exports, especially those involving solid minerals and other commodities, have also been marked by high non-compliant export earnings reports, as well as the Pre-Shipment Inspection of Exports Act (CAP) P26, laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, established the Nigerian Export Supervision Scheme (NES) to prevent capital flight, ensure accurate export valuation, and safeguard Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings. The chairman said the committee will actively utilize existing whistleblowing channels as well as promise confidentiality and possible financial rewards for individuals who provide credible information, and further called for the cooperation of all stakeholders including oil operators, regulators, financial institutions, and exporters.
Nigeria suffered endemic leakages in the form of undervaluation, delayed invoicing, price manipulation, illegal swap, and deliberate overloading. The Act provides the legal framework for the Nigerian Export Supervision Scheme and make it mandatory for all Nigerian exports to be inspected prior to shipment in order to ascertain quality, quantity, and price of all exports. The Act also provides for legal framework for the repatriation of export proceeds. By law, all export proceeds must be repatriated within 90 days from the date of shipment and 180 days for non-oil exports. Recent allegations suggest a significant breakdown in compliance by relevant stakeholders. It is alleged that operators in oil and gas industry failed to repatriate an estimated of 40 to 45% of Nigerian crude oil export proceeds, amounting to approximately $850 billion between 1996 to 2014, in clear contravention of the law. Even more worrisome in the disparity among exports earning data reported by government agencies, such as the CBN, the Department of the Petroleum Resources, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, and the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics.
You are still watching the Global News on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break. Do stay tuned.
These are exciting times for broadcasting in Africa. The National Broadcasting Commission is set to host the 14th Biennial Conference and Exhibition of African Broadcasters, Africast 2025 in Lagos, Nigeria. Participants will experience a week of world-class expositions showcasing the very best in creativity, innovation, and cutting-edge broadcasting technological advancement and trends in the global broadcast media ecosystem. Theme: Navigating the Digital Surge, Building a Resilient Africa Media Ecosystem for the Future. Date: Monday, October 20th to Friday, October 24th, 2025. Venue: Balmoral Convention Center, Sheraton, Ikeja, Lagos, Nigeria. Time: 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. Visit www.africastexpo.com or email info@nbc.gov.ng. NBC, your right to quality broadcasting. Announcer Management.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. And now on to the rest of our stories. House of Representatives have commenced investigation into the $460 million Chinese loan secured by the President Goodluck Jonathan administration to procure and install closed-circuit televisions in strategic locations within the Federal Capital Territory to enhance security in the nation's capital. The resolution of the House followed the adoption of a motion of urgent public importance moved by the member representing Ishikwato Umunne Ochi Federal Constituency, Abia State, Amobi Oga, during plenary titled Need to Investigate the Rising Insecurity and Loss of Several Lives in Abuja. The Federal Capital Territory, despite the CCTV project secured with a Chinese loan of $460 million. Oga said the spate of insecurity in the nation's capital has made it imperative to revisit the project. This is coming after in 2010, the federal government took a loan of $460 million to install CCTV cameras in the FCT, but the project was not executed, and the 9th House in 2019, through its Committee on Finance, took the Ministry of Finance to task on the status of the project and failed to execute the project. The Minister of Finance at the time, Zainab Ahmed, told the committee that the loan was being serviced but failed to give details on the status of the project. In 2023, a federal high court in Abuja ordered the federal government to make public the details of how the $460 million was spent after listening to prayers in the streets brought before it by the Social, Economic and Accountability Project. He further argued that the situation, which has seen Nigeria paying heavily for the loan obtained from a Chinese bank to execute the non-functional CCTV contract undertaken curiously, also by a Chinese firm and a contractor, leaves the country in a lose-lose nightmare. In this contribution, Edo lawmaker Billy Osawaru urged lawmakers to rise up to their responsibilities by asking tough questions. House of Representatives has passed for second reading a bill seeking to amend the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Establishment Act 2004 to confer institutional independence on the Anti-Corruption Agency and to protect the EFCC from political control for its operations to align with global anti-corruption best practices. The resolution of the House followed the consideration of the bill sponsored by Plateau lawmaker Yusuf Gagdi at Thursday's plenary, who took his colleagues through the general principles of the bill at a session presided over by the Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu. Gagdi said the proposed amendment seeks to modernize the EFCC's legal framework to enable it to respond to the multi-layered patterns of financial and economic crimes across the country, adding that since the enactment of the EFCC Act in 2004, the scope of financial crimes has expanded to include cybercrime, cryptocurrency, manipulation, illicit financial flows, terrorism financing, and real estate-based money laundering. Under the existing Act, the President does not need the approval of the Parliament to kick out the chairman of the anti-graft body, adding that the EFCC had operated under outdated provisions that do not adequately address the new realities, and the existing Act does not provide sufficient guarantees for the independence of the Commission, but exposing it to external influence and political interference. The lawmaker also said one of the proposed amendments is the reduction of the President's power to remove the EFCC chairman, which under the current Act can be done at the President's sole discretion, while Section 3, Paragraph 2 of the EFCC Act 2004 provides for the condition of removal of the EFCC chairman, and in the proposed amendment, the removal of the EFCC chairman would require the approval of the two-thirds majority of both the Senate and House of Representatives for it to take effect. The bill was unanimously passed for second reading and referred to the relevant House committee for further legislative action. Federal government has commenced a fresh round of leadership training for chief executives of ministries, departments, and agencies as part of efforts to strengthen accountability, professionalism, and performance in the public service. The two-week program are the 13th cohort of the mandatory training program for chief executives of federal parastatals, agencies, and commissions, opened at the Administrative Staff College of Nigeria, Topo, Badagry, Lagos State. Declaring the program open, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, said the initiative aims to reposition the public service as the true delivery engine of government, and represented by Professor Simon Akaya of the University of Lagos, said every reform and policy of government ultimately depends on the strength and integrity of the civil service. He said the present administration is deliberately rebuilding the public service by modernizing its key systems, deepening professionalism, and restoring confidence in the bureaucracy as an effective delivery mechanism, and further assured that his office would continue to collaborate with the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation to strengthen institutional performance and reward accountability. Delivering the keynote address, the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Mrs. Didi Esther Wilson-Jack, said leadership remains the most decisive factor in public sector performance and urged agency heads to demonstrate integrity, transparency, and inclusion, stressing that modern governance demands synergy rather than silos. Activist and publisher Mr. Omoyele Sowore was on Thursday arrested within the premises of the Federal High Court in Abuja by armed policemen shortly after he appeared in solidarity with the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. Sowore, who has been at the forefront of calls for Kanu's release from detention, was picked up by security operatives who insisted that he must come with them to the Federal Capital Territory Police Command. When asked what his offense was, one of the officers said they are acting on the instruction of the Commissioner of Police. Although Sowore queried the absence of a formal letter of invitation, he said his lawyer must accompany him before he was eventually taken away in a police van. Confirming Sowore's arrest in a post via his ex-handle, human rights lawyer Inibehe Effiong described the move as ridiculous, adding that the police and the Tinubu regime are making a mockery of our judicial system. This is coming after Sowore had on Monday, October 20, led a protest in Abuja, part of the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu demonstrations that spread to other parts of the country. And during the protest, Kanu's lawyer Aloy Ejima, his brother Emmanuel Kanu, and 10 others were arrested and subsequently remanded at Kuje prison. The court has fixed Friday for the defendants to take their plea on the charge. Nigeria Police Force says it arrested the human rights activist Omoyele Sowore for luring protesters into a restricted area to protest in contravention of an order of the court. The force public relations officer CSP Benjamin Hundeyin said this during a media conference on Thursday in Abuja. According to the police spokesman, like the two others too, Sowore would not spend up to 24 hours with the police because we will arraign him as soon as we wrap up his charges, adding that 13 suspects had earlier been arrested in connection to the protest for violating an order of the court restricting protests in some areas in Abuja. According to him, they were arrested because they contravened the court order that restricted movement within those areas despite several warnings. Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed October 29 for the hearing of suits of the suits filed by the police against Omoyele Sowore and other conveners of the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu protest held on October 20. The suit, originally scheduled for October 20 for the respondents in the ex parte motion to show cause while the interim order made by the court should be vacated, could not proceed, and the hearing was stalled as a result of the protest, which was held on the same day, crippling the court activities at the Federal High Court in Abuja. This is coming after Justice Mohammed Umar had issued an interim order restraining Sowore and others from protesting for the release of Nnamdi Kanu in some sensitive areas in Abuja, and Justice Umar barred the protesters from demonstrating around the Aso Rock Villa, National Assembly, Force Headquarters, Court of Appeal, Eagle Square, and Shehu Shagari Way, pending the hearing of the motion on notice. The judge also made an order of abridgment of time within which the respondents will respond to the application on notice to cause the ex parte order be set aside on Monday, the 20th of October 2025 at 9 a.m. before adjourning until October 20 for hearing of the motion on notice. The order followed the ex parte motion moved by the police lawyer Wisdom Madaki on behalf of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, while the police force in the ex parte motion had sued Sowore, Sahara Reporters Limited, and Sahara Reporters Media Foundation as first to third respondents, and in the affidavit supporting the ex parte motion, Basi Ibiton, a police officer attached to the Directorate of Legal Services at Force Headquarters, Abuja, vowed that if not granted, the protest might threaten national security. Lead counsel to Nnamdi Kanu, Kanu Agabi, has applied to withdraw from representing the detained IPOB leader, stating that the defendant had taken the case back from them. All the senior advocates of Nigeria on the defense team have also withdrawn from the suit, a development Nnamdi Kanu himself confirmed in court. Kanu told the court that he would be representing himself for now, though that might change later. When the judge asked if he should be assigned a lawyer, he declined the offer. Defending himself orally, Kanu argued that the court lacks the jurisdiction to try him. The detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has opened his defense in his ongoing decade-old terrorism trial, listing several top political figures and retired military chiefs as witnesses he intends to call. In a fresh motion, the IPOB leader listed the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and former Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Tuko Buratai, retired, among his witnesses, and in the defense notice personally signed him. Kanu informed the court of his intention to call 23 witnesses divided into two categories: ordinary but material witnesses and vital and compellable witnesses. Among the vital and compellable witnesses are Wike, Sanwo-Olu, Buratai, alongside former Minister of Defense, General Theophilus Danjuma, retired, the governors of Lagos and Imo States, Babajide Sanwo-Olu and Hope Uzodinma, respectively, including the Minister of Works, David Umahi, the former Abia State Governor, Okeze Ikpeazu, and the immediate past Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami-San. Also named are the former Director General of the Department of State Services, Yusuf Bichi, the immediate past Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ahmed Abubakar, and several other unnamed individuals. And according to the motion, Kanu intends to rely on Section 232 of the Evidence Act 2011 to compel the appearance of those he considers vital and compellable witnesses. He also asked the court to grant a 90-day window to enable him to conclude his defense, pledging to testify personally and provide sworn statements from voluntary witnesses to support his case. About 72 suspects from 5 countries and 11 others in Nigeria have been arrested by the International Police for alleged involvement in terrorism-related crimes, financial fraud, money laundering, cyber-enabled scams, and the illicit use of virtual assets. The arrests followed a 6-country operation coordinated jointly by Interpol and the African Union Mechanism for Police Cooperation, and according to a statement issued by Interpol, the first of its kind operation, codenamed Operation Catalyst, targeted terrorism financing and the illegal activities supporting it, also led to the arrest of 83 suspects across 6 African countries and the identification of more than 60 additional persons of interest. The statement said the operation conducted between July and September 2025 was implemented under the ISPA program funded by the German Federal Foreign Office to strengthen AFRIPOL's capacity to combat transnational organized crime, and Interpol highlighted the growing complexity of tracking terrorist financing, saying it often cuts across fraud, kidnapping for ransom, illicit trade, Ponzi schemes, and the misuse of virtual assets. Revealing the details of the arrest, the statement said 25 suspects of various nationalities were detained in Angola after investigations uncovered informal money transfer systems linked to terrorism financing and money laundering, adding that the operation in Kenya uncovered a money laundering operation using a virtual asset as service provider allegedly tied to terrorism financing. This is coming after in September, a British Broadcasting Corporation report said the agency arrested 260 suspects across 14 African countries in a separate operation linked to fraud and cybercrime, which caused estimated losses of nearly $2.8 million. National Vice Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP South, Emmanuel Ogidi, has expressed confidence that the party will come out stronger and more united after its ongoing internal reforms. Ogidi said the party leadership is determined to address internal challenges and rebuild trust among its members ahead of the forthcoming national convention in Ibadan, adding that the PDP remains a strong and well-organized political party, and expressed optimism that with unity, discipline and loyalty among members. However, he cautioned members undermining the party's interest to stop, saying their actions amount to betraying the collective effort to rebuild and prepare the PDP for success in its 2027 general elections, and further said the party would take decisive action against anyone trying to hinder its progress or cause disruptions during the convention. He assured members and supporters that the PDP remains focused on its mission to reclaim power and deliver good governance to Nigerians. And now to some business news. Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has called on the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission to deepen its investment facilitation role, particularly around deepwater projects, to keep Nigeria competitive in the global energy market. The Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPCL, Mr. Bayo Ojulari, who disclosed this in commemorating the Commission's 4th anniversary, commended the NUPRC for key achievements over the past 4 years, including the digitalization of licensing and regulatory processes, improved crude oil measurements and metering systems, adding that the successful conduct of bid rounds attracts new investors and progress in gas flare commercialization and new domestic gas supply obligations. He stressed the need for the Commission to go further by strengthening its regulatory efficiency and deepening investor confidence in the country's upstream environment, and urged the Commission to continue to prioritize investment facilitation, especially around deepwater projects, and to create even more efficient regulatory approval cycles. Speaking on NNPCL's investment outlook under his leadership, Ojulari said the company's top priorities include making gas a transition fuel, growing national oil and gas production, and enhancing domestic energy security, and also committed to delivering on President Bola Tinubu's directive to raise national crude oil production to 3 million barrels of oil per day and gas output to 12 billion standard cubic feet per day by 2030. Oshulari said NNPCL's production growth targets would be realized through brownfield and greenfield developments across onshore and shallow water terrains, facilitating major final investment decisions in deep water and accelerating exploration in frontier basins. Nigerian exchange extended a strong trust as investors recorded 1.45 trillion naira gain, pushing the market capitalization to 96.6 trillion naira at the close of trading. The performance was driven by a renewed investor interest in blue chip stocks such as Dangote Cement, NASCON, and Transcorp Hotels, alongside notable gains in Skyway Aviation Handling Company and UPDC Real Estate Investment Trust. At the end of the trading session, a total of 589.43 million shares valued at 23.97 billion naira were exchanged in 28,456 deals, reflecting a 7% improvement in volume, a 17% rise in turnover, and a 4% increase in number of deals compared to the previous trading day. In aggregate, 130 equities participated in trading, with 32 gainers and 30 losers emerging. Dangote Cement, one of the market's bellwether stocks, rose 6.5% to close at 639 naira per share, contributing significantly to the day's overall market gain. The stock's positive movement reflects investors' optimism about the firm's export expansion strategy and consistent dividend history. Also on the gainers list, Transcorp Hotels PLC advanced 6.26% to close at 174 naira 90 kobo per share, as investors took positions in the hospitality sector amid expectations of improved post-summer tourism activity. Market analysts attributed the strong performance to renewed confidence in the equity market, following consistent buying pressure on high-cap stocks and expectations of favorable corporate earnings for the fourth quarter. And now to international tidbits. Royal Navy destroyer HMS Duncan has intercepted and monitored the Russian warship as it passed through UK waters. The Portsmouth-based Type 45 destroyer, operating under NATO Allied Maritime Command, was deployed along with its Wildcat helicopter to shadow the Russian destroyer Vice Admiral Kulakov. According to a Navy spokesperson, it marked the first time a Royal Navy vessel had been tasked directly under NATO's command for such an operation. Minister for the Armed Forces Ican said the Royal Navy stands ready to respond to any Russian naval activity, as well as conduct constant monitoring operations to safeguard Britain and our territorial waters. Commander Dr. Dan Lee, HMS Duncan's commanding officer, said the operation highlights the Royal Navy's commitment to safeguarding UK waters and working seamlessly with NATO's allies to ensure the security of maritime spaces. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says a move by Israel's parliament towards annexation of the occupied West Bank will threaten Washington's plan to end the conflict in Gaza. In an apparent attempt to embarrass Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, far-right politicians took the symbolic step of giving preliminary approval to a bill granting Israel authority to annex the West Bank. Netanyahu has previously spoken in support of annexing West Bank land, but has not advanced this due to the risk of alienating the U.S., Israel's most important ally, and Arab countries which have built relations with Israel after decades of enmity. Ultranationalists in Netanyahu's governing coalition have repeatedly called for Israel to annex the West Bank outright, though the bill was put forward by MPs alongside outside the government, and the bill passed in a 25-24 vote, and it is unclear whether it has support to win a majority in a 120-seat Knesset parliament, and there are ways the Prime Minister can delay or defeat it. The Palestinian Foreign Minister condemned the Knesset's move, saying Israel would have no sovereignty over Palestinian land, while Israel has built around about 160 settlements housing 700,000 Jews during its occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. An estimated 3.3 million Palestinians live alongside them. U.S. has declared new sanctions targeting Russia's two largest oil companies in an effort to pressure Moscow to negotiate a peace deal in Ukraine. The declaration came one day after U.S. President Donald Trump said a planned meeting with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Budapest would be shelved indefinitely, while Trump had repeatedly threatened tougher measures against Moscow, but has avoided them until now in hopes of brokering a peace deal in a 3.5-year-long invasion. His administration has sought to cast the U.S. as a somewhat neutral mediator between the two warring nations after years of full-throated support for Ukraine from his predecessor, Joe Biden. While the U.S. president has grown increasingly exasperated with the Kremlin over its failure to move forward with negotiations. The sanctions are also meeting Ukraine's leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, has been for months calling for. He said they were a good signal from the U.S., adding that a ceasefire was possible if other nations applied more pressure on Russia. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to embark on a major trip to Asia this week, with all eyes on an expected meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping that has huge implications for the global economy. Trump said he was making a big trip to Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea, his first visit to the region since he returned to the White House in a blaze of tariffs and geopolitical brinkmanship. But Trump has made it clear he hopes to seal a good deal with China and end a bitter trade war between the world's two largest economies that has caused global shockwaves, and Trump is set to ink a trade deal with Malaysia, but more importantly to oversee the signing of a peace accord between Thailand and Cambodia as he continues his quest for a Nobel Peace Prize. The U.S. leader may also meet Brazilian counterpart Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva on the sidelines of the summit to improve ties after months of bad blood, and Trump's next stop is expected to be Tokyo, where he will be able to meet conservative Sanai Takaichi, named this week as Japan's first woman prime minister. Japan has escaped the wars of the tariffs Trump slammed on countries around the world to end what he calls unfair trade balances that are ripping off the United States, and Trump wants Japan to halt Russian energy imports and has also urged Tokyo to follow Western allies in increasing defense spending. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy will have 2 police officers stationed in nearby cells while he is in prison to ensure he comes to no harm. France's Interior Minister said Sarkozy began a 5-year sentence after being convicted of conspiring to raise campaign funds from Libya, arriving at La Santé prison in Paris, a stunning downfall for a man who led the country between 2007 and 2012. Interior Minister Laurent Nunez said the 2 police officers who are part of the security detail protecting former presidents will be stationed permanently in neighboring cells throughout Sarkozy's incarceration, adding that the officers would remain at Sarkozy's side throughout his incarceration as long as it is necessary. Sarkozy will be held in La Santé's isolation unit, where inmates are housed in single cells and kept apart during outdoor activities, meaning he should not be in contact with other inmates. Sarkozy's lawyers have filed a request for early release pending his appeals trial, adding that they expected these requests to be reviewed in about a month. Russian attacks overnight and into the early hours of Thursday killed 1 rescue worker in Ukraine, disrupted train services and damaged a synagogue. Ukrainian officers said in Kyiv there were air raids, sirens, and explosions during the night as Russia launched 130 drones, while the emergency services said the rescue worker was killed and 5 others were wounded, putting out a fire during a repeated Russian attack on the village of Zeleny Gai in the eastern Kharkiv region. It also said 640 places of worship and 67 religious leaders had been killed since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, while Russia's defense ministry said it shot down 139 Ukrainian drones overnight, mostly over western regions border of Ukraine. The governor of the Ryazan region southeast of Moscow reported a fire at an industrial site after unverified images on social media showed a large flame at an oil refinery there. The overnight action of Russian and Ukrainian fire came 1 day after Russian bombardments killed 7 people, including 2 children, and spurred nationwide blackouts across Ukraine. King Charles III has met Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican to make history as the first head of the Church of England to pray publicly with the pontiff for 5 centuries. The 76-year-old monarch, who is the supreme governor of the Church of England, arrived in Rome on Wednesday evening with his wife, Queen Camilla, for what Buckingham Palace described as a historic state visit. It will be Charles' first meeting with Leo since the US-born Pope took over as head of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics in May, following the death of Pope Francis, and the King and Queen will then join an ecumenical service at midday in a Sistine Chapel led by Pope Leo and Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, who is currently the senior cleric of the Church of England. The religious break between London and Rome remains, even if there has been a significant reapproachment in recent decades, while in 1961, the late Queen II, Charles' mother, became the first British monarch to visit the Holy See since the split. Charles and Queen Camilla are also set to take part in a service at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome, one of 4 major papal basilicas, which has historic links with the English crown. And here now is ATN Sports News. Super Falcons head coach Justin Madugu is firmly focused on his side's clash with the Amazons of Benin Republic. The holders are eyed a place at the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. Nigeria will be up against their neighbors in the first leg of the final qualifying round tie at the Stade de Keg on Lomé, while the Super Falcons are overwhelming favourites to scale through the hurdle. Madugu is targeting a big win in the first leg tie. The reverse fixture will hold at the Moshood Abiola Sports Arena, Abeokuta, next week Tuesday. And now entertainment news. Nigerian music star David Adeleke, popularly known as Davido, has been appointed chairman of the Osun State Sports Trust Fund. A statement issued by the Osun State government as part of efforts to reposition and revitalize the state's sports sector. And according to the statement, Davido's new role is aimed at mobilizing resources to drive the development and modernization of sports facilities across Osun State. The government said the move reflects Governor Ademola Adeleke's commitment to improving sports infrastructure and creating opportunities for youth engagement, while the Deputy Governor Kola Adewusi, who also serves as Commissioner for Sports, revealed that the award-winning singer was excited about the role and immediately accepted the offer. The Deputy Governor further said the newly introduced Sports Trust Fund, chaired by Davido, would attract investment and support from sports enthusiasts and philanthropists within and outside the state to ensure sustainable sports financing, while Governor Adeleke's administration reiterated its pledge to make sports a major pillar of youth development and community engagement in the state. And that's the global news for tonight. Before we go, another look at the major stories. Bayelsa State government settles Tombia chieftaincy tussle. Tinubu swears in new INEC chairman. Why we arrested Showore, please. NNPC speaks on deepwater investment. Trump imposes new sanctions against Russia. Madugu assures win over Benin's Amazons. Davido is chairman of Osun Sports Trust Fund. I am Favor Chikwesiri Michael. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, and on Instagram at Atlantic Television Network. And not forget, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you for watching and do have a pleasant night's rest.